to go?
Ready to go.
Ready to go. All right, first of all, I'm going to have to get you to explain exactly where you are and what we have around you. It's such a cool setup.
Perfect. So right now here we are inside the distillery, which is Newton's distillery, where we make Satryn tequila. And these are all barrels to age the tequila, right? So on the left side, we have, well, we have both, but right here, down here, this is a French oak. And on the right side is mainly American oak.
Amazing. And what is it about Satryn? What makes it a luxury tequila? What makes it special?
Well, you know, Satryn is a very small artisanal production, which has been in my family for a very, very long time, right? So just to summarize a little bit the story, my grandmother and the founder of this distillery, Carlos Newton, were very close friends since they were very young. My grandmother was from here, from Jalisco, and they grew up together. And well, my grandmother got married and then she moved to Mexico City. And as a friendship, as a big friendship she had with the owner of the distillery called Carlos, Carlos always sent a very nice, very artisanal, very smooth tequila for my grandma to drink because she loved tequila, but you know, tequila is strong. So he would make a special blend for her, not a blend, but a special tequila for her that it was smooth. So what he would do is usually tequilas are double distilled, but for my grandma, he would triple distill it, which makes it even smoother. So she would get, you know, the feeling of a very nice tequila, but not so much the feeling of the alcohol or the strong feeling. So she would love it, you know. And I grew up with that tequila, and you know, I would steal my the bottles from my parents when I was, you know, 16 and stuff. And I always I grew up passion for tequila so much that at some extent I decided that it was time for me to share this amazing tequila that my grandmother had with the world, right? So, well, that's a little bit the story. We started creating a very cool project with a very well-designed bottle that depicts Mexico, kind of like a part of the culture of Mexico, which I find very interesting. And to talk about the tequila, about why it makes it so luxury, is because we take so much care of everything throughout the process, even when it comes to, you know, the plant, because taking care of the plant is super, super important, as well as the production. So we make sure that the plant grows in the correct way in the agave fields, with not exposure to chemicals, and it is mature enough. When it's mature enough and well taken care of, sorry, I lost you for a bit.
Yeah, that's okay. We can just pick it up because we'll use different bits.
Okay. So from the process, everything we do, you know, is important for profile. So we steam cooked the agave, then we ferment the agave in stainless steel tops. I think it's called like that. And then we triple the steel in copper steels. No, so that is exactly the flavor that we're looking for whenever we reach the blanco. And it's a very, very artisanal process to do it. I mean, there are different ways to distill a tequila, and everything that you do in the process will give the flavor profile. So it's not particular to say something is better than the other, but for me, the way that we do it is the correct traditional process that it should follow, right? And then we have the reposado, we have the añejo, and we have the añejo cristalino, which are tequila that has been aged in the barrels. So for the reposado, we age in French oak and American oak to get to the flavor profile that we want for 8 months. And then for the añejo, we age also in American and French oak for 1 year, 8 months, more or less, to also get to the profile that we want. And then for the añejo cristalino, we age for 1 year, 8 months, more or less, in only American oak. And then we filter with its carbon activated process. So what we do is we take away the color and it will look like a blanco, like this silver, beautiful color, but it will have the notes and the profile of an aged and mature tequila. And it's going to be smoother, given that it has gone through the carbon activated process. So I think I think we take a lot of care on what we do and how we follow the process and how we take care of the plant and how we reach to the flavor profile that we're looking for that makes our tequila very special and very luxury, right? And you know, I think many people what they're doing now is they're adding additives and flavors to the tequila just to get to the profile that they want, and they kind of like forget the art of the process to get that. And I think that is what differentiates a good tequila from a tequila that is perhaps more commercial, right?
Absolutely, that makes sense. The Cristalino, the Cristalino, whatever, the one where you take the color out, is something I hadn't even heard of until I started this story. Is that a fairly recent trend that is growing, or has there always been this
No,
expression?
it's fairly recent. So it has been going on for about 20 years more or less. So I mean, in comparison of how long tequila has been, it is fairly recent, and it's becoming a very big trend in Mexico. So everybody has a thing for Cristalino tequila, but it's still not a thing in Europe. So, but the whole process makes it. I think it's a very special thing. It depends on your palate, but having a Cristalino allows you to taste a very smooth tequila, for people who don't like very, very strong. And you'll find characters and notes of the agave and notes of, the reposa, the aging and notes of the process that perhaps for somebody who doesn't like very strong tequila, it's a really good option to get started with.
And then, obviously, the international market has grown and grown and grown, and it's still hugely growing with tequila. It's like one of the fastest growing in all the spirit sectors. And I wonder, like, how important is education in terms of and sort of busting the myths and the falsehoods that have always been around tequila in terms of an international audience? How important is that when you're expanding the markets of just educating people?
I think it's one of our core and most important things. We want everybody to understand that tequila is just not like number one a drink for people to get drunk. It has so many years involved and so many agents involved and so many, it's kind of an art. So I think it is part of our core of the Satrina group to kind of like make people understand that it's what you're drinking is actually very, very special. And it's very special of how many years the plant has to be and how many years the plant has been in the earth. And it's very special of how many people and how many agents are involved in the process, and the whole years it takes for aging. Everything is very important. So definitely it's a very important thing.
And also, with the increase in demand, there's more people making tequila, and that puts more strain on, or I think people, the pressures of how long it takes to grow. And as you say, you need to make sure the plants are mature, but not everyone will be doing that now. And there's like all these pressures coming in from demands from different, from on the sector as a whole. And I wondered, like, sustainability has become a very big talking point in tequila, I think, and lots of people have been, it's been coming up more and more. And I wonder, there seems to be quite a lot of innovation around that as well, which I find really interesting, of how you can do new things. And do you think about that, and how do you approach that side of things?
Of course. I mean, first of all, I think the most important for sustainability in tequila is how mature the agave is when you harvest it. Because the less mature it is, the less sugar it has, and therefore the more agaves you need to find to make a liter, right? The more kilos per liter you need when there's less sugar. So we've always matured our agave until its last bit, and we, in that case, having that agave harvested, we don't deforest as many other people are doing just to get to the demand that they want, right? So right now, people are starting to harvest agaves that are 2, 3, maybe 4 years old, and therefore they need to cut way more agaves than they would cut when it's only a 7-year-old or 8-year-old agave. So I think that's a very important part, especially many of these things come from the producer, itself, but you as a person who's giving tequila to the people, you need to make sure that the agaves that you're using for your brand are mature enough, right? Also, when you harvest, it's very important that you check that your producer is actually using all the parts of the plant, right? So here in Santa Lucia, they use all the fibers in the plant so they can use them for fermentation, and they can make a very natural, very well fermented product before distilling, right? So those are the little things that you need to take care of. And we obviously are a small company, and we're trying to little by little grow in a very sustainable way. And in that way, we're going to be able to help in different ways with our production, right? But for now, what we do is we just take care that where our agaves come from, how are they grown, how long, how mature are they, and that our distilleries, using water treatment, and that they are, sustainable and conscious about all these subjects.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, I feel like traditionally it's been a very male-dominated industry, like a lot of drinks industry has, but I think particularly in tequila, you're obviously a woman in tequila. Is it something? Yeah. Are you seeing that grow? Do you encourage women into the sector? Is it something you're passionate about in terms of equaling out the genders a little bit more?
I mean, definitely. I think it's been such a fun journey, to start getting into a super male dominated industry in every single part of the process, not only in production, not only in the agaves, but also in the bottling, in commercializing, in everything. There's like very few of us who are there. And I think us as a Trina personally, I think we're doing very, very well. And part of that, I think, is because we have such a good chemistry between everyone in the team. We're all an all-female team, which it wasn't my like I'm just gonna work with women, but it happened like that. And I think we've managed to make a very big statement, like, guys, yeah, we're women and we're rocking it, and you have to listen to us, definitely. So, and it's become kind of like a lesson that you kind of like need to take what you want. You cannot just wait for somebody to give it to you, because as soon as you get to a new place, they kind of like don't look. And it's not in a bad way, but since it's an all male dominated industry, and it's always been like that, they cannot help but to kind of like don't really take you seriously when you're a woman, right? So you really need to step up and take what you want and make a statement, kind of like that. So
I agree completely. Yeah. And also, tequila is a drink that's drunk by lots of women, and why should there not be women's palates seeing what's good and bad and tasting and all those areas? It's there's no reason why.
Definitely. I've met like amazing connoisseurs, amazing mixologists, amazing like people in the industry. Actually, our maestra is a woman. Our maestra tequilera. And that is, that is completely new, because it's always, the word maestra is actually the correct word, is maestro, which means male teacher, so you have to say maestro Mireida, like the woman. Imagine, that's how male dominated it is. So it's definitely very important to that we start pushing more women into the industry. So we have a lot of potential.
Yeah, there's not even a word for it. That's never good. Not even a word for it. And so, in terms of just going back to some of the myths and the sort of things that people traditionally have thought about tequila, what do you say when someone comes to you and says, I don't like tequila, it gives me a bad headache, it makes me feel terrible? What's your response to that kind of?
What have you tried? What have you drank? You probably had a 15-year-old super crazy drunk with 2 bottles of a really shitty mix, and therefore you don't like tequila. So what I say is, open your mind a little bit and try different tequilas and give an opportunity, because there's amazing products. I mean, obviously I love Satryn, but I think you need to try everything, and it's kind of like wine. The best wine is the one that you like the most.
Exactly. And I also think, the other thing people say is, but it all tastes the same. It's all, I think people are unaware of the different expressions even of tequila, and that maybe if they don't like a Blanco and they're a whiskey drinker, they might want a Reposado. That sort of thought that, oh, well, there is only one type of tequila. It seems to be very common, and particularly I'm thinking in the UK where, you know, we're a bit behind on the market.
Well, I mean, it's definitely kind of like part of our core to go to the UK and be like, hey guys, you know, tequila is not what you guys drank when you were 15 years old. There's so much more, and there's for everyone. You know, there's the blanco, there's the reposado, there's the añejo, and there's for every palate. You know, so I think it's definitely it's part of our job. But I would say to people like, you know, give tequila like an opportunity, and you're not going to get disappointed, because if you try a good tequila, you're going to love it and you're going to drink it for the rest of your life, particularly because if you're drinking a good tequila, you're not going to get a hangover, right? It's such a if you're drinking a good product, you can drink all night and then you're going to wake up in the morning fresh. So that's what I would say to people.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I agree, definitely. That's how I feel. And in terms of, what are you noticing in terms of trends when it comes to like cocktails and mixologists? What are people doing in bars now that they maybe before maybe it was just margaritas or people were shooting tequilas? What are people doing with tequila now that's interesting and new?
Oof, I mean, it's so wide. I've been to so many bars lately, all around Mexico, and I think there it depends on which bar and how they're creating new things, and they're doing different things. So I don't think margaritas and palomas are even a thing anymore. You know, kind of like high mixology is becoming um, a very big thing in Mexico City, and I've tried from, you know, something very homemade, kind of like with the pineapple juice homemade and certain liquors, to something, you know, very like a jalapeno margarita as well. So I think there's a lot of innovation. I personally I love drinking tequila straight. O sea, tequila straight, no ice, just to sip. But I've tried very, very good mixes, and you know, it just depends on people like actually opening up a little bit and being like, hey, I actually can mix with anything and make an amazing cocktail with tequila, than just like, okay, typical margarita and uh, paloma and the usual things.
And is there a way that people should taste, you know, obviously with wine, people are quite familiar with the different ways that you're meant to taste wine and swirling it around and drink and sniffing it. And all, is there a specific way you tell people to try and taste tequila?
Yes, definitely. I don't drink tequila in a shot. Actually, the shot cup, this is kind of like what everybody talks in tequila about, is the shot cup was made by the foreigners who wanted to have a shot and drink quick, like very bad product, right? So whenever you have a shot, you don't really, your nose is not, is too close to the liquid that you cannot really smell the taste. So that the smell the notes, right? So it just makes it easier to drink. But I mean, if you are having a very nice tequila, you need to have a flute cup, which I think is the best way to, you know, see the body and to smell and to taste. So there are four things that are important for whenever you're going to taste a new tequila, which is number one, color, in which you usually grab the flute and and you know, take a look somewhere that there's light, and you take a look at the color. So you know, for blanco it should be silver, for reposado it should be yellowish, for añejo should be a little bit more brown, for cristalino it should be, you know, crystal but a little bit of yellow, so you can know that it was actually in a barrel. So you take away almost every bit of the color but not everything, right? So the color, I mean, why I'm saying this is because the color is important, so you realize which type of tequila you're drinking. You can also analyze if it's actually, you know, a good product or bad product. So if you have a cristalino with no color, it's weird, no? It's suspicious. So that's the first part. You take, you look at the color, then you take a look at the body, and when you're looking in the body, you're looking for a mild to strong body. So if it's a blanco, it should be a mild body, and you can tell by how long it takes to for the tears to come down. It's kind of like the tears of the wine, right? So how long it takes the tears to come down, and then you can analyze if the body is mild or strong. Usually, light bodies are not good tequilas, you know, or have additives and have mixes. What makes a good body is the aging, the alcohol, the process. Then there are three types of smells, which are the primary and the secondary, which is for every tequila. The primary, you can taste, you can smell like the earth around the agave. and the secondary you can smell the cooked agave, and for the third is all only for the agaves that have been aged, which you can smell the oak, which type of oak has been used, and then well you taste it. And I think the correct way of tasting it is giving it a quick sip, so you can accustom your body to the temperature of the alcohol. And after you've accustomed your body, and this is for every single spirit, not only for tequila, after you've accustomed your body, now you take a sip and you move it around your mouth. And when you swallow, you can actually start tasting the notes, because the first sip is always for any distilled the strong one, so you don't really taste, um, you don't really give yourself the opportunity to taste properly tequila, like that. So that's the correct way of of tasting the tequila.
Well, that's great. That sounds good. And then in terms of, so you it's a family business that's been around for a really long time, obviously. What are the biggest changes from when your family was first making tequila to now? Like, how has the industry changed over that period of time?
Well, I mean, the industry obviously has grown so much, and it has, the upsides and the downsides, right? So, I mean, obviously, the modern ways of distilling mixed with the art have made us arrive to, you know, make different types of tequilas and give different types of notes to the people who have not tried tequila, right? And perfecting everything. So I think the tequila industry, if you ask me, is the one that has the most potential to make the perfect tequila. And obviously we've grown conscious about being sustainable, about taking care of the plants, about many of those things that before perhaps it was not much in our mind. It was just like, okay, we harvest and whatever. And now, people are like, okay, you harvest, but what's happening to the bats? What's happening to the plants? What's happening with the deforestation, with the agrochemicals, etc. And uh, on the other side, it has grown a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. So sometimes it feels a little bit uncontainable, how many brands, how many supply there is, which I wouldn't see not even 7 years ago when I started the project properly. It was not like this. So yeah, I've seen it change a lot. Distilleries grown in an amazing way, and those who have grown in not a very beautiful way, like a little bit more industrial and less conscious, etc.
And then we also have now like quite a lot of celebrity endorsed tequilas that we maybe wouldn't have had a few years ago. But I guess with that, is it making it accessible to people that it wouldn't have been accessible to before? Do you think people are trying it because there is also a link to, no names?
I mean, I don't like to speak bad about any tequilas. I just think that people should be a little bit more conscious and perhaps buy from Mexican producers than buying from tequilas from Hollywood. And I think there are certain people in Hollywood that are very much aware of the situation, and they're taking care of the situation. They're managing their tequila well. But I think there's also certain people who have no idea about the situation, and they don't mean any bad, but they are willing to just make their tequila with any types of agaves and just pay as much money just to get to their tequila, And I think it's important for the consumer to have that in mind. Like, okay, I I like this tequila, I'm gonna drink it, but what's behind this? Are these people who are, perhaps not very much in the industry, and they just wanted to have their tequila to kind of like flex? Are they aware of like the situation? Are they making a good product? Are they taking care of their agaves? Are they doing it the artisanal, traditional way, or they're just, flexing kind of thing?
Totally, I totally agree. And I think, I do think consumers now are much more interested in where things come from. I think, compared to, and I think certainly in the UK, you had the craft gin industry that just took off and became huge, and people have just become more interested in where the plants come from, where they're growing this, what's happening. I don't think
Definitely.
people would have asked those questions 10, 15 years ago.
Definitely agree with you. That's something that I totally missed, but yes, absolutely. People are more aware. Like, where does this come from? How has it been made? Definitely.
Do you, I mean, probably not at the moment, because I guess it's not in COVID times, but do you run programs and do you do educational things around distillery? Do you allow visitors? Is it do you have that kind of
Yes.
program?
I mean, we definitely wanted to do that for 2020, but obviously it got a little bit complicated. So I mean, actually, me being here right now is something they allowed me because of the very good relationship we have. But everything is still, very restricted, and they are very, very aware of the situation. They're taking care of everything in a very like strict and correct way. So we are hoping to be able to open for the public as soon as it feels safe and sure for everybody. So definitely, I think it's also part of our intentions to bring kind of like the bartenders and the people that are in charge of the bars, so they can, not only listen from my mouth, like how it's done, but so they can see and they can understand better, and then be like, okay, now I understand why this is a better tequila than the other tequila. Because what happens a lot is that, all the bartenders and mixologists, there many do, but many they just know from what they hear, right? And there's also lots of stereotypes and lots of things that are incorrect about tequila that they have in their mind. So I think it's important that they come and they get to understand this
Which
thing.
reminds me, this one last thing. I think with, say, a premium vodka or a premium gin is cheaper than a premium tequila, but by the way that it's, because of the way it's made and the costs that go into producing tequila, it is more expensive, and that's something you can't really get away from. And I think that's, again, something through education, because people going into a bar need to know that if they have to spend a bit, maybe they will have to spend a bit more for a good product of tequila, and why it's more expensive, and learning, because people don't even know it comes from a plant. Some people wouldn't even know what an agave plant is. So there's that side as well, isn't there, with the with the cost and the affordability of tequila, I think is.
No, I mean, I think people very much need to understand that it's a plant that it needs to grow so many years, and that the process takes time. Like, if you want to do the process right, you need to steam cook, take your time, you need to ferment with the correct time, because you do natural fermentation, which is takes time. You need to distill the proper way, and there are so many people involved that it's obviously, like, not because we want to like raise the price like that, but it's because the whole process is very expensive. So I think as soon as people understand that, they're like, okay, I'm having something that comes from somewhere, more than, okay, I'm just having a drink. So yeah, it definitely is part of our job to educate people and to make them understand the whole tequila process.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. That's great. That is perfect. Exactly in half an hour, and I have everything, I think. But
Thank you so much, Liz.
It looks great, and I'm glad we managed to get you in the distillery, because it's cool. It looks really cool. I'm glad we managed to sort
Yeah, do you like the view?
So good. Like, it looks a bit scary, like they could just suddenly all tumble down. Buried.
Oh my God, I hadn't thought of it, and now I'm getting anxious.
But no, thank you so
By
much.
the way, the videos, I didn't understand. We took them in portrait, but if you need them, we can go back again, perhaps in 2 days, and take landscape.
Yeah, that was completely my. They are used. They're lovely. They're beautiful. I really like them, and it was completely my fault, because I said the wrong way around. I meant It was totally.
Don't worry about it.
But it's better if they're in landscape, just because it fills the screen more. We can use the ones we have. So if you can't, it's absolutely fine. I'll use what I've got. If you could do just one or two, it would be useful. But
how long can I have to, like, perhaps do it?
well, I'm not going to be writing this piece now till the early next week, because I've got too much other things on. So, and I've got a couple more interviews. So
Okay.
By like early next week.
Okay, let me try it out, and perhaps I'll send you a couple of videos in landscape.
Yeah, but please don't go to too much trouble, because I really appreciate you've done a lot already, and they're lovely. It's just it was me being an idiot.
No, don't worry. I love going to the agave fields. It's a fun thing, but it's a little bit far away. So, but I'm gonna see if I can go now, perhaps.
Yeah, see if you can, and if not, as I said, no problem at all. It's great stuff, and I'll make sure you get a copy so you can see what we've done when we've done the pieces, and hopefully we'll get lots of use.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Luis.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Goodbye. Okay. So, first of all, lovely to meet you by the lovely Zoom.
Nice to meet you.
Could you just first introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your role?
Sure. So I'm Steffin Oghene, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Tequila El Tequileno, and I'm calling you here from Guadalajara,